Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in, amma ba'd. Jazallahu shaykh ala hadhihi al-khutbah nafi'a wa nasallahu yanfa'ana biha. هذه ترجمة مختصرة للجالية غير الناطقين باللغة العربية. The khutbah today was about the act of praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is one of the important characteristics of the believer and one of the things that we see in the lives of the prophets and messengers of Allah ta'ala, because they were the supreme examples in the way that the believer worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So from the things that they did in their mannerisms with Allah, in their adab, their manners with Allah azza wa jal, is to be always in praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that includes living one's life in a state of submission, in a state of worshipping Allah azza wa jal, depending on Him, and praising and doing the things that He has commanded us to do. And he mentioned, Hafidahullah, from one of the important messengers of Allah azza wa jal. In fact, he's one of the major prophets of Allah ta'ala, which is the Prophet Nuh alayhi salam. We have in his example many ways and many samples of how he praised Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his life. And he mentions some of the mawaqif, or some of the places that we find this. One of the things that we have to remember about Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam is that he lived on the earth for 950 years. He spent a long time on the earth, and he made great efforts in calling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and along with that, he did not have a lot of followers. And yet, even with that long time that he stayed on the earth, and the fact that not many people followed him, in fact, from the people that did not follow him and refused and disbelieved in Allah azza wa jal was his own family, from his son, from his wife. And so Nuh alayhi salam, he exerted a lot of efforts in his worship and dependence and praise of Allah ta'ala. And so he mentioned some of these mawaqif, from the ways in which Nuh alayhi salam worshipped Allah. From the characteristics of Nuh alayhi salam and the way in which he worshipped Allah azza wa jal is that he was somebody who was a shakur, and that he thanked Allah ta'ala for whatever he was given. And that is why Allah azza wa jal said about him in the Quran, innahu abdun, ya qawmi i'budu Allah ma lakum min dunihi ma lahu ilahin ghayr. So Nuh alayhi salam, he in the ayah that preceded us, he said, innahu kana abdan shakura. Allah azza wa jal mentioned about him that he was a servant who was thankful. He was a servant who was thankful. So Nuh alayhi salam, he was thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also from the characteristics of Nuh alayhi salam is that he called his people to the tawheed of Allah ta'ala. And in the verse it mentions, Allah azza wa jalla says, Ya qawmi i'budullah ma lakum min ilahin ghayrihi. He said alayhi salam, that Allah mentioned about him, that he said to his people, O my people, worship Allah, you have no other God besides him. So one of the ways that Nuh alayhi salam praised Allah ta'ala was that he called his people to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his tawheed and his oneness. From the other mawaqif and places that we see Nuh alayhi salam praising Allah ta'ala was his lordship of Allah ta'ala. That he informed his people that their Lord was Allah ta'ala, the one who created them, the one who provided for them. And that was from his call, that he called them to recognize the rububiyyah, the lordship of Allah ta'ala. Also, from the ways in which Nuh alayhi salam praised Allah ta'ala was that he recognized that only Allah ta'ala knows the unseen. And when he was tested alayhi salam by the disbelief of his son, and he complained to Allah ta'ala, Allah azza wa jal placed in his heart the contentment and the certainty that his son is not of his people, even though he's from his offspring, but he's not from his people because his actions are not pleasing to Allah ta'ala, that he does not worship Allah, he did not believe in Allah ta'ala. And this was hard for a father to depart from his own offspring because of the fact that they chose a way other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But such was the way of the prophets of Allah ta'ala. And from the lessons that we have in all of these things that are mentioned here is that for us as believers, we have to take an example from the way that these prophets and messengers worshipped Allah, because they were the best at doing that, and they had the most knowledge about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we read about them, the benefit for that The benefit of that for us is that we learn the way in which they submitted to Allah Ta'ala. Also from the way that Nuh alayhi salam praised Allah Ta'ala was that he recognized Allah to be the forgiver. And that is why we find in the chapter 71 of the Quran, in which Allah Azza wa Jal calls, which is known as Surah Nuh, he mentioned alayhi salam, it's mentioned in the Quran that Allah Ta'ala said about Nuh that he said, فَقُلْتُ اسْتَغْفِرُوا رَبَّكُمْ إِنَّهُ كَانَ غَفَارًا يُرْسِلِ السَّمَاءَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِدْرَارًا وَيُمْدِدْكُمْ بِأَمْوَالٍ وَبَنِينَ, to the end of the verse. Nuh alayhi salam, he said, فَقُلْتُ اسْتَغْفِرُوا رَبَّكُمْ. He said, I said to them, seek forgiveness from your Lord. Seek forgiveness from your Lord. So that was one of the ways in which Nuh alayhi salam, he praised Allah Ta'ala, was by calling the people to recognize that Allah, from the sifat of Allah Azza wa Jal, is that He is al-Ghafur, that He is the one who is abundant in forgiveness of His servants. Also, that He is forgiving and that He is merciful. Also, from the characteristics of the worship, the praise of Allah Azza wa Jal that we see him exemplified in Nuh alayhi salam, was that he thanked Allah for saving him. He said, Alhamdulillahi alladhi najana min al-qawm. He thanked Allah Azza wa Jal for saving him when he was commanded to go on that ship, on that boat. And Allah Azza wa Jal drowned everyone who disbelieved. Nuh alayhi salam, he thanked Allah Ta'ala for saving him. And thanking Allah Ta'ala is one of the ways that the person increases in the pleasure of Allah Ta'ala. And the last thing that he mentioned here in the ways that Nuh alayhi salam praised Allah Ta'ala was that he placed his trust in Allah Ta'ala. And the prophets and messengers of Allah alayhi salam, all of them were the best of those who put their trust in Allah Ta'ala. We find many examples in the story of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam, like in the Battle of Uhud, in which he stood and the people prayed behind him, and we find him in that particular station, in that place of difficulty, that he's put in his trust. Even though they had a strong army, he still put his trust in Allah Ta'ala and asked Allah Ta'ala to bless the outcome of their events. So all of these are lessons for us in the ways in which we should worship Allah Ta'ala by praising Him, because it's mentioned in the authentic hadith in Sahih Muslim that Allah Ta'ala says that He is the most beloved, the thing that He loves most is the praise from His servants, and that is why He has created them. So praising Allah Ta'ala, and there are many ways that we do this, by making takbir, by making tahleel, saying Allahu Akbar, saying Alhamdulillah, Subhanallah. All of these are ways that we praise Allah and always be in the remembrance of Allah Ta'ala. And this is from the manners of the believer that brings us closer to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala and makes us closer to the example of the prophets and messengers that came before us. We ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to give us the tawfiq to be of those people. هذا والله أعلم وصلى الله على نبينا محمد